My name is Stella Kosiboje, and I work with Nigerian Women in Public Relations as the programs and membership lead. The PR Women of the Month is one of our initiatives to spotlight women that are Nigerian around the world that are doing great things. I said it would be very nice for us to speak to you, for our community members to know more about you. Thank you very much, Alice.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and, of course, the women of Nigerian women in PR. I appreciate and I understand the importance of spotlighting women, right? Their voices, because this is pretty much the work that we do. I do every day, just trying to get more women voices out there. So I appreciate that and totally, truly honored to be even considered as PR Woman of the Month. So thank you.
On this edition of our PR Woman of the Month, we have Dr. Alex Okoroji. She's a media personality, communication strategist, and a creative consultant who has spent 2 decades at the intersection of arts, media, and business. A dynamic polymath in the creative industry, she has built an extraordinary career as a performing, literary, and visual artist, moving fluidly between television, film, radio, digital media, and print. She is the founder and president of G Woman Media, the world's first woman-owned, women-led, women-backed, and women-focused global multimedia ecosystem that amplifies the voices, vision, and value of women through broadcasting, radio and television production, audiovisual and publishing, digital and print. She's also the founder of the Bragg Media Company, a boutique creative agency that provides innovative brand consulting and multimedia communication solutions to clients around the world. Her exceptional contributions to media communication and global women empowerment has earned her numerous accolades, including a citation of honor from the Office of the President of the Bureau of Queens, New York City, presented by New York State Supreme Court Judge Honorable Justice Carmen Velazquez on behalf of Borough President Donovan Richards Jr. on International Women's Day 2024. She's a celebrated author of 4 books, including The Naked Truth and Uncovered. Alex continues to write, teach, and speak globally on media, mindset, and mastery. It is our honor to have you, Dr. Alex, join us today. Thank you very much for your time and for agreeing to do this with us. Your bio is really strong, and it just shows excellence and competence. And one thing that struck me when I was reading your bio is women empowerment, and that is what we do at Nigerian Women in Public Relations, because like you said, give voices to women, because most women are doing excellent work, but most of the time they don't talk about it. So, and if we do not talk about it, we'll never know. So women need to speak more because they have great capabilities. They've done great work. So yes, thank you very much, Ma. We'll just get right to it. How did you get into media, public relations, and communication?
First of all, thank you for that introduction. It's always difficult to sit through a bio, but yes, thank you for that. How did I get into PR communication media? Obviously, it started with my background in the entertainment industry as an actor. So my early career is as an actor. And, I was in Nollywood for many years, still part of the industry. And I believe that communication is trifecta, right? Whether it is visual, verbal, nonverbal. And while going through a bit of challenges with my career in the industry, I started to ask myself, why am I doing this? What is the real reason I want to be an actor. I want to be out there, be on screen, be seen, what exactly is the reason? And I knew that the common denominator was that I wanted an opportunity to communicate, right? And I was already writing screenplay, I was writing scripts, I was doing voiceovers, I was doing a lot of other media engagement. And I found out that the common denominator across board was that I wanted an opportunity to express and I wanted to communicate. And so what now happened was that in the course of doing that, I saw how actors, although we would get press, for example, it was always sensational in a sense. Every time somebody wrote about what we were up to, is either what you were wearing on the red carpet or who you're dating or who you're, whatever was going on. The press was never really about the work that we did. Right. And the engagement, the perception that was being created out there was very in opposite to who the individual was as a person or as an artist. It was always about the character, it was always about the persona. And so you would spend your entire maybe 10 years, 20 years in a career that people didn't really know who you were. So although you had fans and you had supporters and followers, they didn't get a sense of who you truly were. So you were either this pretty face or this hot girl, whatever cool words now people use out there, but people didn't get to see what was behind the artist of the individual. So I realized it was important to get into, first of all, I was my first client, right? I was my first client by saying, okay, I'm going to take my own career into my own hands by trying to now control the narrative in sense of, okay, this is what I want people to know me as. I want people to see beyond the pretty face or beyond the camera that I have thoughts, I have experiences, I have capabilities, I am a professional, and I wanted to create that narrative. So that's really what got me in there. And the first time I wrote something, I started out blogging. I remember I started a blog at the time. This was in 2014. And it started from a person that was more of self-help. But then it was the style in which I wrote what I wrote was very different. It wasn't like a news blog or a gossip blog. It was really a self-help transformational blog. And the first brand, and I went, I think I was at an industry event, but out of town, out of Lagos. We traveled to an event, and I noticed my colleagues were mixing something. They had this drink and they mixed, the male colleagues, they were drinking a brand, and I don't know if I want to promote them, but they had this mix, a Campari, I would say it's Campari and Star. And I saw them mixing, this men mixing stuff into it. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. What is this called? And they said Senator. And I was like, So I went back home to Lagos, and then I wrote this blog article about how this mix. And somebody reached out to me from Campari and said, hey, we love what you did. Like, would you do an article for us? A sponsored post. And I was like, I never thought I could do this. Oh, yeah, I can. And they're like, okay, what do you charge? And so I sent them my media kits and said, well, this is how much I'm going to pay. And I remember somebody reaching out to me to say, but you're not Bella Naija. Why are you charging this much? I was like, well, I'm not Bella Naija, but I'm Alex Okoroji. Like, do you know, like the audience that I'm talking to, this is not, I'm going to especially. So again, this is how that started. And so eventually we had a meeting, and then they said, go ahead and do it. And they paid, And so I was like, okay, I can do this, right? And that really began that began the process in which more people started reaching out, oh, would like for you to write something, but do it in a way that it doesn't feel sponsored. Do it in a way that it feels like you're trying to build a relationship between that brand, humanize it between the brand and their potential audience. And that's how eventually I started my company, the Brag Media Company, and then we started centering brands, and, the story goes on, but pretty much that's the start of it.
Wow. Talking to you, even the way you speak, storytelling is part of it, and it's very captivating. And when you talked about writing for the brand, and the brand reached out to you, I was like, wow, it shows the endless possibilities when you put your mind to something, what you can achieve. Oh, wow, that's a really great story, and we are very happy you're telling it to us. Congratulations. So, wow. It's really amazing that when someone starts, then things just begin to fall in place. It's really nice. And when you said you started communications for yourself, most agency owners, actually, if you speak to them, they say they started for themselves. And friends started telling them that you can monetize this, you can do this for, or can you do this for me? And that was how they started. Thank you so much for sharing. It's really exciting, and I love the way you tell it because it's very compelling. Thank you very much. Yes, we want to know what are some. I know you mentioned the brand that you just worked for. What are some other successful campaigns or projects you've worked for along your career and being an agency owner?
Oh, we've worked with different brands across different industries, from corporate brands, and I would try to mention a few names, to individuals, artists, thought leaders, to even politics, to tech, just different product based. And so I would say, for example, and on different areas of just communication, right? Because again, remember, I say that communication is trifecta. My approach is, first of all, establishing a brand presence. And I would say for me, the communication strategy that I pretty much use is branding, PR, and marketing, right? And the process of branding really is establishing identity for that brand. And of course, with PR is, our building credibility, trust, managing reputation, all of that. But you can't really do that if you don't understand the brand and if they don't really create an identity. Now, some brands are more established. Sometimes people know, organizations know their business, but they don't know their brand. And so you have to get them to understand what exactly it is. Is it about your company or your business or the work that you do, the product you create, the service you offer that makes you different from another business in the same marketplace? And so understanding that is very essential, because that's how we now try to create the sort of credibility, the know, like, trust factor with PR, and nurture those relationships between them and their stakeholders or their customers or clients. And then, of course, with market, where we use a trifecta again approach, meaning visual, non-visual, verbal, to create the sort of content that allows people to get to know who they are and engage with them. So with brands, I would say, for example, I think Fox Africa, I've done stuff with Fox Africa. I've done stuff with Nestle. I think it was Quaker Oats. I did do an influence branding. I did some work for them, some PR work for them as an influencer. I used to be part of an agency called Webfluential, and I think they're a South African based agency. And they had reached out to me and say, hey, we'd like for you to do something with Quaker Oats. And I was like, okay, I can. Let's see what that goes. And I've worked with Longreach for Longreach UK. I've done stuff with the African Movie Academy Awards, and it was more on verbal because we did some work with some voiceovers leading up to the AMA Awards. And in the political side of things, we even did a camp we used to run. I used to be I led a campaign for a gubernatorial candidate in Lagos at the time, Jimmy Agbaje, where we had for NL, and our approach wasn't necessarily running for the political side of the campaign, because we're not politicians. What we were doing was trying to engage young people to be interested in politics and to add their voice and to get to know the human behind the human behind the position of the office who was looking for that. And we really were successful with that. What wasn't successful was him winning that gubernatorial election, but that has more to do with his party and the party groundwork. That had nothing to do with what we were trying, what our own goal was. Our goal was to get young people involved in politics, and young people were involved in politics. We had this beautiful music campaign where everybody loves Jimmy Agbaje, and we did this ad. I brought a couple of colleagues from the industry. So we were successful with our own goal in trying to get him up front and get people interested in him. Now, on their own side, in terms of the politics, we were not involved in the political, in the party, whatever, but we were successful with our campaign. And so, same thing I've done for a lot of authors who we've published works for. Many of them first-time authors who just have this dream to write a book, but nobody knows you. And we say, okay, we'll help you establish an author website, an author profile, and we'll reach out. We'll do some press releases for you to establish narrative about your work and get you out there and get you on a couple of media platforms. And many of those authors became bestsellers. So again, we've done quite a bit, not to toot my horn, but we say brag because we think that for me is, just making sure that your clients have stories, bankable identities, platforms, products, services that is worth bragging about. So yes, I've worked with a couple of successful campaigns.
All right, thank you for sharing. So I see that you worked with a lot of brands across countries. You talked about an agency in South Africa and working for a politician in Lagos. So we want to know how you collaborate with other teams, organizations to align PR strategy to achieve the broader business goals, because like you stated that your goals, you achieve your goals, but how do you bring it all together to achieve the broader business goals for a client
Um,
or an organization?
Well, I mean, the first thing is, what are their own goals? The goals you're achieving is not your goal. It is the goal that that client brand wants. So the first thing is understanding the brief. What exactly do you want? Right? That's the first step. Okay, you come to me, what exactly, because again, we say PR isn't just about writing press releases or just about, it really comes down to what is it that you want. And then we select the appropriate strategy to achieve that goal. And for many of the clients, the goals are different, right? Some people just want to become, they just want to nurture relationship. They want to be more visibility. Some people want more attention in media. For some, it's they want sales. For some, it's they want a bestseller, like I said, be on a bestseller list. For some, they want just more people who did, if one person who didn't know about you or 10 people who didn't know about you yesterday now know about you today. So again, based on those goals, we now set up the right strategy in terms of what do we want to do. Are we creating more content? Are we doing media outreach? Are we developing campaigns? All of that again. And the reason I'm being a little broad and because I'm not just working in one sector. I work in a very multi-dimensional sector and very multi-dimensional clientele as well. And being that even me as an individual, I work in multidisciplinary domains, and so I don't like being boxed. And the same way I don't like our clients being boxed, I like people to try as much approach as as many different approaches. So we based on what their goal is, that's how we measure. So if we say, okay, if you want more media, if you want more media time, say you want to appear in more press, and now we have to say, okay, what was it like before you came to us, right? And how do we get there? And so we start, okay, outreach. Do we want to, for example, I know some people, even when we create press releases, the goal of the press release is to get the attention of the media, right? The goal of the press release is for someone to say, this headline is so interesting. We want more. We want more of the details, right? We want more of the stories, and we want you to come back. Now we just don't want to just take your press release and put it out there. We want more of the story, right? Because the press release is a synopsis of whatever news you have to share, right? It's not the whole story. It's just a synopsis. And the goal is that you craft it in a way that creates more attention for someone to go, oh, I'd like, they reach out. And I'll give you an example. For example, when I first started, and I think I used a story of how I was my first client. I was in Nigeria, and I wanted to build a global brand, right? And I was like, oh, I need more people to invite me, but I want to do more international stuff. I want to do more international podcasts. I want to be on media platforms. But I lived in Nigeria. I lived in Nigeria for a very long time, up to very recently. And so I started looking for brands and started pitching radio hosts. And I would write them emails and say, invite me to be on your show. And I'll craft this really crafty headline and go, hey, you need an international guest on your show. I would find what was the USP, because I knew that being in Nigeria at the time was fresh. It was new. And even though they had a lot of thought leaders and experts, they had people who were in their country, right? And who didn't want to have somebody who was outside Africa or was new for the first time, or they never, I say, hey, invite me, you need someone like me on your show. Or I would do that for other clients as well. Find what makes their brand so impactful, or what makes them so unique to that platform, or what would make people more interested in giving them that first eye to say, okay, let's do. So that's how we measure, based on what their goal is. And most times we try to hit that mark. So I hope this answers your question. I know I went pretty vague on a lot of things.
Claire, know the business goals first of all. So what does the client want? What do they want to achieve? And then you come up, if it's media, if it's a campaign, full-blown campaign. Yeah. I got you. Thank you for sharing that with us. And it's interesting the client you worked with, and you're very excited as you talk about it. We can see the excitement.
Yeah, you remember the
And
stories. You remember some of the things
yeah,
that you've achieved and done. And I think for them, it's also the biggest joy, and sorry to cut you off, is their response. Nothing makes you so much happier than seeing how happy they are about the results. And I think if I'm smiling, that's what makes me feel happy, is remembering feedback, getting those emails that say, man, thank you so much. You just, you blew my mind, or this was amazing. Oh, I can't believe it. Look at what's going on. I have many of those emails, many of those messages, people reaching out, posting them. So you're saying, I want to thank my this, I want to thank my that. Those are the things that allow you to feel good because they're happy and they got what they wanted. So.
all right. Thank you for sharing. So we would also want to know what is the most challenging part of working in media, public relations, and the communications industry, especially as a female, putting in context that you've worked in Nigeria and you're currently not in Nigeria. So what would you say are some of the challenging parts?
Uh, I mean, being a woman by itself is a challenge. just being a just being a woman is a challenge, right? Just being a woman in itself,
True.
it's all the challenge you need, because you're in a boys' club. And I'll be honest with you, even though PR is something that women naturally gravitate to, because let's be honest, your first PR manager is probably your mother. This is something that's natural to your mother tooting your horn, your sister going, have you seen my sis? We're very good at building, and I would say this, public relations is really about relationship. And women are very great at establishing relationships, nurturing that relationship, and being able to do that for their clients. The challenge is that many times there might be unrealistic timelines in terms of what a client might want, right? Say, okay, even if you're not going to come today and tomorrow be a celebrity, for example. You know what I mean? There's a process to how this would, and of course, you've got to have the budget. So let's say you want to do a full-on campaign. It will not, there, and if you like to deliver at a certain level of excellence, it does cost money. So sometimes having to deal with clients who want something, especially if we're going to look at, say, the peso framework of paid media and media, you haven't earned media yet, right? So if you haven't yet earned media where you're at that level where if we just put out a press release, somebody wants to talk to you, then you have to first start with the paid media, which is press releases and paying for it and advertising, and all of it will cost money. So most people just assume, they try to compare themselves with people who are on the end media side of things, thinking that it is just natural that it will happen. But if your company is new, nobody knows you, you have to start first paying for the opportunity, trying to plug yourself into things, or even just creating, I would say, using shared media or using owned media. And shared media is great in areas, say, collaboration. This is where now you now want to invite other people to say, okay, I'd like to interview you, because if I interview you, then you will share it with your audience, and that's it, so fresh exposure for us. Or let's cross promote, or let's collaborate on a project. This is where shared, okay, you have a platform, you have a podcast, I have a blog, or these are ways that you can get that opportunity out there because you haven't yet earned media. And then the other way, of course, is owning media. And owning media, for example, would be something like starting your own company blog, which is a place to start because it helps with the SEOs, or starting your own company podcast, or whatever the case may be, using your own platforms, your own social media to at least get the word out about the work that you're doing or the service or product. So the challenge really comes down to our timeline, expectations and budget, and of course being a woman. So pretty much that.
All right. I love what you said. That being a woman is a challenge. It is. And you have to juggle a lot of things at the same time. There's family, there's career. Yes, it is a lot being a woman, but women are strong. And like you
Yeah.
said, communications and public relations, our mothers have been doing it for the longest time. Yes, thank you so much. So we just want to know, in your experience, how does public relations differ in Nigeria compared to other regions?
Uh, That's a pretty interesting question. Um, I think that the goal will be the same. The difference pretty much is, first of all, our audience. I think our audiences are unique in a way, right? Our audience, even though the attention span and the way to nurture relationships for for a client or customer base, I think the audience, the customer base, the audience, the culture is different, right? And so with the culture being different, it means that how you actually nurture those relationships are different.
Different.
So I would say that that is the core difference. The thing that, and I kind of found this as I started building my own brand and trying to build a global brand is, there's a time I stripped down my social media following. I yanked off people from my page because I found out what I was trying to promote to them wasn't something they were interested in. People wanted to see what you wore on the red carpets, for example. That is the way you nurture your followership. Like, the surface, and I'm not saying this is for even corporate brands, these are different, but the audience base, the fact that our cultures are different means that our approach to PR too has to be different. So the kind of things that the kind of headlines or the substance or the delivery, the style of delivery, right? When I was writing, for example, my blog and I had a predominantly Nigerian audience, there's a way that I wrote with inflections, with a little bit of the lingo, with a little bit of pidgin, with a little bit of our own sense of humor and style to capture that audience, which will be lost on a very different, audience base because nobody knows Nawa or how far, and you add that for humor. You want to try to humanize the brand, but again, because the customer base or the audience base is different, your approach will be different. So I think that's really the difference. The other thing is that there's also, I think here the difference as well is that there's no expectation for free work. Or I think people to a large extent understand that things cost money. Right. In Nigeria, there's the expectation that let's just do this thing now. Or okay, we don't have money, we don't have a budget, we don't, it always starts, we don't have money, we don't have a budget. Even if there is money, that is always the preface. The preface is by, we don't have money, no budget. What can we do with this? I think elsewhere there is the idea, even if they don't have the budget or they have a budget. The thing is, they may not exceed their budget, but they understand that it will cost something to do a campaign. It will cost something and they will say, okay, this is the budget we have. This is what we want to work with. This is the brief. Right? Everywhere else, they want more than the budgets can deliver, and they will preface it with, we don't have a budget. So I think that's the difference.
Yes, like I relate in Nigeria, they will say, you're my guy now, you're my G. I'm doing it for
you're
me.
You're my G. Do it for me. Free. Let's, anyhow now. Do for me now, person. That's, so.
Yes,
yeah.
We do that a lot in Nigeria. Thank you very much. So how do you stay updated with the latest industry trends and best practices in media and communications?
I definitely, I'm signed up to a couple of newsletters. I try to make sure that I'm, Haro, a couple of, just make sure that you're following certain platforms. I keep my eyes out there. I use alerts, Google alerts for specific sectors, industry that I want to hear, see what, also, with clients, you want to see where they're showing up. You want to hear where they're showing up. So alerts, newsletters, sometimes you just search, every now and then. And then, of course, you still have to upskill. I will always say this, you have to continue to learn. It's a continuous learning experience. You have to keep learning because things change, right? The industry changes, new tools out there, new platforms out there, new ways of being, new ways people are interacting now with AI. There's just all kinds of stuff. So you keep your eyes out there, follow as many brands as you want to, follow industry experts as well, follow corporate newsletters. There are just many ways that you stay up to date, and that's how, I'm trying not to drop names and give free PR to to platforms and brands, but yes, that's the general idea in terms of how to stay up to date.
All right, thank you very much. And for our last question, we have what advice will you give to a PR professional who helps to climb the ladder. The person is saying that maybe I'm working with an agency now. I want to have my own agency in the next 5 to 7 years. What advice will you give to that professional?
Um, and yeah. So the advice I would give is, first of all, figure out, build relationships. Let's start from there. Build relationships. It comes down to relationships. Build relationships. You are, as I mean, we always say your network is your net worth, but that's true, right? There are many unsolicited opportunities that I've gotten that I didn't pay for. I couldn't pay for, but just because by virtue of who you are, you get these opportunities. So build relationships before you even need them. So that's where I would start. Don't just wait till I want something from you. Now I'm reaching out to you. Start early by just connecting with the right people. Even if you're not there yet, start with just appreciating what they're doing, saying, something I saw that you shared or you did just, made an impression on me. I'd like to stay connected. So that would be a way. And then find a mentor, somebody who's already doing that in that industry, because we do not, no person's an island, right? We're all, find somebody you think that you can actually start to model your career, someone who's already who's already where you would like to go. So, and I'm sure there are many people like that, many women like that. Look for someone who's already running their own agency. Reach out to them, say, hey, I'd like you to mentor me, or just, you can also have a relationship from a distance, but that would be a start. Nurture relationships, have a mentor, and just start. There's no, if you want to have that in 5 years, it will take you starting. And you can't see the end of the journey. This is the type of journey that you will first take the first step and the second step and the third step. You can't see the entire staircase, right? So whether it be just creating the agency or even establishing it as its own business, because there are so many things to running an agency. It's not just the expertise that you have as a PR professional, where of course you still need to upskill and learn more, but it's also, what does a business look like? What is a business like? How do you find the right team, the right people to work with, to establish it as its own standalone entity? That takes a little bit different work as well. So you also have to learn about business, running a business, what is required, and all of those things. So I would say, establish relationship, find a mentor, build network, and just start.
All right, thank you. I hear you. You said build relationship. What about someone that is introverted, that doesn't really speak, but the person loves public relations? How does that person go about building relationship and network? In fact, the person goes to events, but to network it's a bit of a struggle. How does someone go past that?
Okay, so thank you for asking that question. Building relationships, networking doesn't mean physically going to network events. And, that's something that I need to, let me give you an example. I'm what you would call an ambivert. I'm not as extroverted as people think I am. In fact, I like being indoors. I don't like being out there as much as people think I like. People just think, that's the truth. People think, oh my God, she's so high. You. I'm not as extroverted as people think I am. I really like my own space, my own confinement. I'm quiet. And that's the truth. But I learned that if you're going to be successful in this industry, you have to step out sometimes of yourself and get out there. Now, getting out there doesn't mean physically being everywhere. It just means sometimes, there are many times so let me tell you what, I was in Nigeria having clients in the US, in the UK, in India. Many of my clients never met me for the first 5-6 years. I had clients who had never met me one-on-one. Some of them met me 5 years later. And there's a level of trust you would have to build and credibility for yourself, for people to just trust you to even pay you for a service, even when they haven't met you. So ways to do that. That's, we're meeting now. We're doing this over Teams. There are many ways you can establish that. Get on webinars, get on events. There are a lot of digital virtual events happening if you don't like to physically be in the space. But the thing is, people will still need to know who you are. So you can't be silent and quiet and establish, because you have to establish credibility and trust for yourself. So you would have to be a bit more visible. Visibility is important. And visibility means, sharing your story, sharing your expertise. You can't say, you have expertise, but then they can't see as there's this thing my mother used to say. Then she would say, if somebody is trying to call me to God and say, hey, before she became born again, and someone's preaching, she's looking at the preacher, right, and saying, okay, I want to see the work of God in your life. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to see the work of God in your life. You don't look happy, and you're telling me to come. You want to see the person who's preaching to you. So if you're saying to someone, look, I'm an expert in this and I can do this for you, and this is what I can do, they want to see a semblance, just something that shows that you can't be afraid of visibility and trying to help someone be visible. You can't be afraid of nurturing relationship. And I'm not saying that this isn't possible. It is possible, but you need to not have to sell it. And the one way to not have to sell it to the client, potential client, or whoever it is to be the example, right? So that's where I'm going. So there are many ways: virtual events, reach out to people in their DMs, establish relationships, leave comments on their social media posts. You don't need to physically be at a physical event. I'm sure when you leave every time you leave a comment, by the fifth comment you leave on the fifth post, the person will know who you'll be like, okay, who's this person who's always cheering me on, giving me positive feedback. And then you reach out DM. There are many ways, right? Send an email, find their emails, reach out to them, tell them honestly I had people who reach out, email that I've established relationships with that I don't even know one-on-one, because they sent me an email and I responded back, and they would send stuff and they would buy, I could tell they were trying to build a relationship with me, and I welcome that. So there are many ways to do that without physically going to industry events. Hope that answers your question. I'm watching the time, so I'm trying to be mindful of the time because I can talk a lot.
Yes, it does. That's all the questions we have for you. I don't know if you have any last words for us.
Well, first, my last words really are just to thank you, to thank NWIPR, if I got that correct, Nigerian Women in PR. Just to thank you for the platform, and thank you for the work you're doing spotlighting women. Women are a big deal after my heart. And so I think that what you're doing is amazing. I was, just trying to learn more about the organization, and I think what you're doing is great. So that's my final words. And yeah, that's it pretty much.
Thank you. We hope to collaborate more in the future, and we'll definitely keep in touch. Thank you so much, Dr. Alex.